The demons have won. Not with a battle, with a boon. Indra sits on the floor of his own kingdom, homeless, while a woman occupies his throne. The sages have gone silent. The prayers have nowhere to land. The gods have tried everything, and everything has failed. So they go to Vishnu, and Vishnu goes to Shiva. And together, the two greatest forces in creation sit in silence. Because there is only one answer, and the answer is impossible. A child must be born. A specific child. The son of two male gods. A child the laws of creation forbid. The demon who built that trap was very clever. She did not ask for immortality. She asked for something the universe itself could not produce. She was wrong. The universe does not negotiate with impossibility. It rearranges itself until the impossible becomes inevitable. His name is Manikanda, the one with the bell around his neck. He will defeat what defeated the gods. He will ride a tiger through a palace gate. He will choose a forest over a throne, without hesitation. But first, two eternal principles that were never meant to converge must find each other. And the universe must break its own rules to save itself. Her brother built an empire from nothing. Through discipline, through tapasya, through a boon that made him invincible to every man in creation. The gods scrambled, bargained, trembled, until they combined every drop of divine power into a single form. A goddess, born specifically to do what no man could, Durga. And when Durga raised her weapon, the demon fell. The three worlds exhaled. In one corner of the Asura realm, a woman watched. Mahishi, sister of Mahishasur. She did not mourn with tears. She mourned with strategy. She walked into the Vindhya mountains, alone, without ceremony. She stood in rivers. She sat between fires. She starved her body until only intention remained. Fury, refined enough to wear devotion's clothes. Years passed. Then Brahma appeared. He cannot ignore what has been genuinely earned, even when the one earning it is dangerous.
Ask.
Mahishi did not rush. She had rehearsed this moment in the silence of mountains. She knew what she wanted. More importantly, she knew how to ask for it.
Lord, I ask only for what is fair. My brother was invincible to every man in creation, and still they found a way. They built a goddess from borrowed power and called it justice. I do not ask for invincibility. I do not ask for immortality. I ask only this: let me be killed only by the son born of Shiva and Vishnu.
Brahma was silent for a long moment. Both are male. One is the destroyer, one is the preserver. Their natures do not converge. They balance each other across the cosmos like two poles of the same axis. This was not a condition. It was a wall built from the laws of creation itself. Mahishi watched him think. She had thought longer. Brahma granted it, and Mahishi descended upon the three worlds, not in rage, in certainty. She had not asked for power. She had asked for a logical impossibility, and she had worn devotion's face to receive it. The trap was set, not with violence, with intelligence. Before the answer could be found, another thread needed to complete itself. Bhasmasura, a devotee who had performed relentless, ferocious penance. Not from devotion, from ambition. Through sheer accumulated austerity, he earned an audience with Shiva. And Bhasmasura asked for a power no mind should wield, that anything he touched upon the head would turn to ash. Shiva granted it, not from carelessness, from the certainty of one who already knows how every story ends. The destroyer does not panic. He watches. He watched as Bhasmasura received the boon. He watched as something shifted behind the demon's eyes. He watched as power met the hunger that had always lived there. Power given to someone who does not understand it is not a gift. It is a countdown. Bhasmasura turned toward Shiva, his hand rising. Shiva did not run. He withdrew, the way a teacher steps aside to let a lesson complete itself. Because what was about to unfold was not Shiva's problem to solve. It was Vishnu's. Vishnu saw what was needed. Not force, reflection. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them, Mohini stood in Bhasmasura's path. Not a weapon, not a warrior, a mirror. Divine illusion given perfect form. A presence so complete, so absolute, that Bhasmasura forgot everything he had been holding. The boon, the hunger, the hand still rising. Mohini moved. She danced, not to entertain, but to reflect. Step by step, Bhasmasura followed, copying every gesture, every movement. Completely surrendered to the illusion his own desire had built. Until his hand came to rest upon his own head. Not Mohini's doing, his. Ash. Balance restored, not through destruction, but through reflection. The demon had always carried the instrument of his own end. Mohini simply showed him where it was. Shiva came to Vishnu's abode after. Not shaken, not humbled, curious. The way the greatest ascetic in all of creation can still be curious about the full range of what existence is capable of. They sat together for a time without speaking. Two forces that balance the cosmos between them. Destruction and preservation. The one who ends things and the one who holds them. In the space between them, all of creation breathes.
Show me the form that turned a demon's hand against itself.
This form is Maya, divine illusion. I do not show it lightly. You must understand the consequence. Even the most prepared mind may not remain prepared when it encounters it.
A pause. The kind of pause that exists between two beings who have known each other since before time had a name.
I have held the Ganga in my hair without flinching. I have consumed poison meant to destroy the universe and kept it calmly in my throat. I have burned Kamdev to ash for disturbing my meditation. Show me.
Vishnu closed his eyes. Mohini stood in the room. What Shiva felt was not weakness, not distraction, not the failure of a great ascetic confronting temptation. It was recognition. The recognition that happens only between principles that have been apart long enough to understand what their separation costs. Stillness meeting motion. Dissolution meeting preservation. Finding in each other something the universe had been quietly waiting for. Not desire, necessity. Parvati stood at the threshold of the room. She saw it before either of them could name it. Another wife might have turned away. Another wife might have felt the ground shift beneath her. But Parvati was not another wife. She was the mountain's daughter. She had chosen the ascetic when the three worlds told her not to. She had sat in penance of her own to earn what she loved. She understood better than anyone what it meant for the universe to require something that looked like loss but was actually completion. She did not speak. She simply understood. And in understanding, gave the moment permission to be what it needed to be. This was not chance, not temptation, not a moment of failing. This was dharma, moving in ways the mind cannot always follow. And from the union of Shiva and Mohini, destruction and preservation, Hara and Hari, the ascetic and the enchantress, something began. Something the universe had been building toward since the moment Mahishi first walked into the mountains. A child was born, not from a womb. Mohini was Maya. Illusion has no womb. Radiant, silent, carrying in his small body the combined weight of two eternal principles that had never converged before. He was Hariharaputra, son of Hari, son of Hara. The bridge between preservation and dissolution. The answer to an impossible question. But a divine child cannot be raised in the celestial realm. He had work to do on earth. And work requires a life lived in the world, to know hunger, to know loyalty, to know what it means to be human before revealing what it means to be divine. So the gods wrapped him in the cloth of an ordinary arrival. They placed him on the banks of the river Pampa, in the forests of Kerala, at the edge of a kingdom ruled by a man who had been praying for exactly this. Around his neck, a small golden bell. A money. The forest heard his first cry, the way forests hear things that matter, with absolute stillness. King Rajashekar of Pandalam was a just king. He gave his people everything a ruler can give: order, safety, prosperity. Except one thing he could not manufacture: an heir. That morning, walking the banks of the Pampa, not expecting anything, he heard it. A child crying. Not the cry of distress, the cry of arrival. I am here. I have come. He followed the sound through the trees, through the dappled light of a forest that seemed to be leaning in, and found the boy, lying on the riverbank, alone, radiant, not with light exactly, but with presence, the kind that changes the air of a room simply by entering it. The golden bell around his neck caught the morning sun and scattered it in every direction. A sage appeared from among the trees, as sages do, at exactly the moment they are needed.
Do not be afraid. Take this child to your palace. He is of a lineage that removes all suffering. Because he carries a mani at his kantha, his neck. Call him Manikanda. When 12 years have passed, you will understand everything.
The sage disappeared completely, without a trace. Rajashekara looked at the child. The child looked back, with eyes that seemed to already know every question the king had not yet learned to ask. The king lifted him and carried him home, thinking he had found a son. He had, just not only that. Manikanda grew, not faster than everything around him, deeper. He learned the Vedas, the way water learns to flow, naturally, completely, without effort that looked like effort. He mastered the martial arts, the way someone masters what their body is only remembering. His guru watched him with increasing wonder and decreasing confusion. There are students who are gifted. There are students who make you feel that you are the one being taught. Manikanda was the second kind. One day, the Guru's son was brought before him, blind since birth, unable to speak. Manikanda placed his hands on the boy's eyes, then on his throat. The boy blinked, once, twice, and spoke.
You are no ordinary being. I have known it. But I did not know how to say it without sounding like I was no longer your teacher.
You will always be my teacher. That does not change with what I am.
He asked only one thing, that the miracle be kept secret, because the time had not come. It was coming, but it had not come. After years of watching this extraordinary boy fill the space in Rajashekara's heart that had been empty for so long, the queen conceived a son, theirs by blood, theirs by name, and in the queen's heart, the rightful heir. But the king had already decided. Manikanda, older, wiser, more capable than any child he had seen, would be crowned. The queen heard this and felt something that does not name itself easily. Not just jealousy, the specific, ancient fear of a mother who loves her child more than she loves what is right. She went to the royal physician. She went to the minister. And in the dark corridors of the palace, where important wrongs are always committed, they built a plan. The queen took to her bed, pale, still, performing illness with the complete commitment of someone whose child's future depends on the performance. The physician announced, with the gravity of a man delivering a sentence,
The queen is gravely ill. There is only one cure. The milk of a tigress.
The palace fell silent because everyone understood what this meant. Tigress milk in a forest full of tigers. A task designed not to be completed. A task designed to eliminate the one being sent. The king's face fell apart. He rose from his throne. He walked to the window. He stood there long enough that the court began to wonder if he would speak at all.
I will not send him.
Manikanda stepped forward before the room could answer.
Father, I will go.
Simply, the way someone speaks when they have always known this moment was coming. The king placed both hands on Manikanda's shoulders, the way a man holds something he is afraid of losing.
The forest is not safe. You are my son. I will bring back.
what is needed and everything else that needs to be done.
He held his father's gaze for a moment longer than necessary, long enough for the king to see something in those eyes he had always seen but never had words for. Then Manikanda turned and walked into the forest. The king watched until the tree line swallowed him, then stood at the window for a very long time, alone. Mahishi did not sit still on Indra's throne. Stillness was for those who feared losing what they had. She had nothing to fear. She moved through the three worlds, the way a storm moves, not looking for anything in particular, because everything already belonged to her. She had silenced Devaloka. She had scattered the sages. She had turned sacred groves into places where prayers died before they could form. Now she moved through the forests of earth, the deep forests, the ones that even kings did not dare enter. She was strongest. She had always been strongest. And then, something changed in the air. A disturbance, small, almost imperceptible, like a single clear note in a room full of noise. She stopped, turned. Something was in this forest that had not been here before. Something that made the trees feel different, the silence feel different. She had felt the presence of gods before. She had felt the presence of warriors before. This was neither. This was something she had no name for. And that, for the first time in a very long time, made her uneasy. She moved toward it. Manikanda entered the forest, the way he did everything, without hesitation, without looking back. The trees closed around him like a hand around a secret. The forest had held many things over the centuries. Kings who came hunting and never returned. Sages who came seeking and stayed forever. Creatures that answered to no law but their own. The birds went quiet as he passed, not in fear, in attention. The way living things grow still when something important moves through their world. He was not alone. He did not come looking for Mahishi. He came because a king, who called himself his father, was grieving. He came because dharma does not arrive only on battlefields. Sometimes it arrives through a son walking into a forest that was never really about tigers. But the forest already held her, and she had already felt him. The distance between them was closing. Not because either of them was rushing, because the universe had already decided this meeting would happen. And the universe is not known for changing its mind. They found each other the way opposing forces always do. Not by searching, by inevitability. Mahishi saw him first. A boy, walking through her forest without fear, without armor, without an army behind him. She laughed, not from cruelty, from genuine disbelief.
A child? This is what disturbed my forest? This is what made the air change?
Manikanda looked at her, calm, unreadable.
You felt it. That means you already know.
She stopped laughing because he was right. Something in her had known from the moment the air changed. She just had not wanted to understand it.
You are a child. You carry no weapon I fear. No army stands behind you. What are you to me?
He did not answer immediately. He looked at her the way a physician looks at a wound. Not with judgment, but with a clear understanding of what needs to happen next.
I am the answer to the question you asked Brahma, the one you thought could not exist.
The forest held its breath. Mahishi attacked. What followed was not a battle the way epics describe battles, with lists of weapons and counts of wounds. It was something older than that. A reckoning. The kind that happens when alignment meets distortion, when dharma meets the imbalance it was born to correct. Mahishi threw everything at him. Every power Brahma had given her. Every protection earned through years of suffering. They did not hold. She came at him again, harder, with the full fury of someone who has built their entire existence on the certainty of their own invincibility. Still, he stood. She came a third time, reaching back through every year of penance, every sacrifice, every cold river and blistering fire. And in the middle of that final wave of power, she felt it, the boon, unraveling, not broken from outside, fulfilled from within. Because her condition had always been the son of Shiva and Vishnu. And here he stood, the impossible, present, breathing, waiting.
How this cannot.
The universe does not negotiate with impossibility. It rearranges itself.
She went still, not in surrender, in recognition. And then Manikanda moved. He danced. Not a dance of victory, not a dance of cruelty, not a warrior's display over a fallen enemy. The dance of completion. The kind Shiva dances when something must end so something else can begin. The dance that does not celebrate destruction, it consecrates it. It says, this ending was necessary. This ending was always part of the pattern. The earth shook. The forest shook. The ancient trees, witnesses to 10,000 years of what the world contains, stood in absolute silence. And then Mahishi was still. From somewhere within her, beneath the rage, beneath the grief, beneath the boon, a woman emerged. Leela, who she had always been. Freed from a curse she had carried longer than she could remember. She looked at Manikanda, not in defeat, in release.
I came into this life carrying my brother's grief. I turned it into a weapon. I thought that was strength. Thank you.
She meant it in a way that only someone truly freed can mean something. From above, from a hill called Kalakati, Shiva and Vishnu watched. And what lived between them in that moment does not have a simple name. The stillness of creation fulfilled. Shiva appeared before Manikanda in the forest.
The work is done. But one thing remains. Your father grieves. Return to him. Let him see what he raised. The tigress milk will be arranged.
Indra came, the king of gods, who had lost his throne to Mahishi, who had wandered in defeat, came now with gratitude so vast it needed a form to carry it. He became a tiger. The other gods became tigresses, a procession moving through the forest with the quiet certainty of something that has already won. Manikanda rode upon Indra, and made his way toward Pandalam. When the palace saw them coming, a boy on a tiger, followed by tigresses, moving without urgency, without display, the court fell silent. Then fell apart. The minister who had conspired, the physician who had lied, the queen who had loved her son in the only way she knew how. All of them seeing now what they had sent into the forest. Not a boy, the son of Shiva and Vishnu, riding the king of gods, carrying the milk as if it were the smallest of the things he had done that day. The king fell at his feet.
Forgive me. I let them send you into that forest. I knew something was wrong, and I let it happen.
Manikanda lifted him.
You gave me what no divine realm could. A life. 12 years of it. You gave me hunger and loyalty and the weight of being loved by someone who could lose me.
The king stood in silence, the throne behind him, the crown on its cushion, everything he had always intended to give.
Then stay. Be crowned. Rule. This kingdom is yours.
Manikanda looked at the throne for a long moment. The way someone looks at something they have already decided to leave behind.
I cannot stay. What I am cannot be contained in a palace. What I must be cannot be crowned.
He turned toward the forest, toward the western Ghats, green and ancient and waiting.
Build me a temple in the forest, at the place my arrow marks.
He raised his bow, drew it, released. The arrow flew past the palace, past the city, into the western Ghats. It landed on a hill that would come to be known as Sabarimala. The temple rose, not in a city, in a forest. He set the path. 41 days. Discipline, simplicity, stillness. Then he spoke of the 18 steps, not merely stone, a path of transformation. 5 steps for the 5 senses waiting to be mastered. 8 steps for the 8 inner conflicts waiting to be shed. 3 steps for the 3 gunas waiting to be transcended. 2 steps for knowledge and the ignorance that veils it. A climb not of the body, of the self. Every year, millions walk. They leave behind identity. They climb, step by step, towards stillness. And at the summit, they say, Swami Saranamayyappa. The impossible was never broken. It was fulfilled, and the forest remembers and exhales.